Good afternoon, Miss Girly PB Sinon. I'm Eli Royce Fernandez with my group mates, Mr. Earl John Season, Miss Isabel Castillo, and Miss Gabriela Lorea. So we would like to interview you regarding assessment as our requirement for psychological assessment. So first question, can you briefly discuss the roles and tasks of an HR specialist, particularly in relation to assessment?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So yeah, thank you for having me. First, so I'm currently a virtual assistant for the HR department of a US-based company. The company is providing cleaning service. Anything that you could think of in terms of cleaning, that's what the company do. As their virtual assistant, I mainly support all of the facets of the people's department or the human resource department. So from recruitment to onboarding to compensation and benefits to training and development, organizational development, and the other facets. So as an HR specialist in general, particularly in assessment, I do support both in the job application and with the current employees. So we do assess first, of course, the job applicants. We do make sure that we select, or number one, the company attracts the right people, and we select the right people, and we retain also the right people for the job. In terms with assessment, first, of course, in recruitment, we design and implement assessment process to both assess not just the skills, but even, let's say, the personality. Will the personality of the applicant match with the culture of the company, or is the future plans or the plans of the applicant match with the company's plan for every hired candidates? And then in terms with the existing employees, we do a lot of performance evaluations because aside from benefits, we also give a lot of bonuses, performance-based bonuses. So we monitor how are they doing, and then there are also a lot of growth improvements. So let's say from entry level, we are eyeing that as the company expand, each of the employees as well will have what do we call employee growth, or in a sense career development. So from entry level, we are eyeing that they'll be part of the management. So we also do a lot of, I would say, training needs analysis. So, for example, this person is not performing well in a specific or is not able to hit one of his or her key performance indicators. So, we need to check what is the current situation that's affecting how the employee behaves during work, or what are the things that or things that are affecting his or her performances.
So moving on po to the next question. What are the assessment tools po that you employ in recruitment po, and for the employees job performance evaluation naman po?
Yeah, so for recruitment, we do a lot of combinations. So let's say structured tools, or when we do structured interviews, there's of course behavioral analysis as well. We also have a lot of skills tests. So what we do is we actually ask them to come in and do the actual job. So for example, we have a client, let's say based in Arizona, that they wanted to avail the cleaning services. The applicant goes along with the existing employee, and then they will do both the cleaning service. That's how we do the technical assessment, and we pay them. So even though they're still applicants, we still pay them during the technical assessment. And then we also have actually an honesty test, because all of our employees that go with operations, there are clients of us or customers of ours that still pay cash. Even though we have an option to pay via card or via online, they still wanted to pay cash, and those are being received by the employees in the ground level. So we do have an honesty test to check, of course, if they'll be honest when they do receive money. Or let's say, for example, they do also are the ones who assess how much are we going to bill the customer. So let's say it's based from how many chemical cleaning tools were used, and then how long was the service, how difficult is the service. So we have, like, though we have a calculator that does that, but still it depends with the employee what are the numbers they input. So they could simply say that I use, let's say, 4 liters of the chemical component, but in reality they only use 3 and they kept the 1 liter, things like that. So we also have honesty tests for them, and then we do a really heavy reference check. So if based from their resume they've been up to 10 let's say companies, we would do all the interviews with the 10 companies to check not just with their supervisor, even their, let's say, co-level employees, how was the performance, because again it involves handling money and then handling a lot of stocks, and then of course to also check how's the punctuality, because one person may be performing well, but in terms of their punctuality, and you do not want customers to be waiting in front of their door and then someone came late or didn't even reported or went with the customers. With the job performance, we do have, as mentioned a while ago, KPIs or key performance indicators, and then we have a very detailed, I would say that we have a performance appraisal forms. These are being answered by the employee himself in terms of self-assessment, and then we also ask the direct supervisors, managers, co-employees, and then if there are instances, for example, he had an interaction with one of our IT guys, so we would also ask the IT people if how does this employee approach you, because we just don't look at alone with the performance, but even like the behavior. So that's included as well in the performance appraisal forms. And then we do have this 360-degree feedback. So like everyone that is involved in terms of how they work, we also do ask the customers that being serviced by that employee, how was he, not just in terms of the cleaning itself, but how did he approach you, how was the conversation with him, did he mind to discuss with you the, let's say, the after service notes that you need to take note, things like that. So anything that we need to know with the employees, we need to know. So that's why the job performance evaluation is very much thorough, and we need to do it as quick as we can. You know, you don't want to be getting a lot of time of each of the person involved in terms with the assessment, too much of their time, because of course they also need to work. So yeah.
Do you decide which psychological test you will use to screen applicants and to make sure they are fit for the position they are applying?
So of course, before we choose, though right now we have already some existing psychological tests that we use. As mentioned a while ago, we use the honesty test, we also have personality test. But prior that, the company did a lot of analysis. If, let's say, what is the best personality test that we'll be using, we have actually have an on-call psychologist that he or she updates us as well if, oh, okay, the personality test that you've availed last time has now an updated version. We also wanted, I would say that the company really invests in a lot of standardized tests to make sure that we are using the, if not the best, at least almost the best equipment in terms of assessment. Personality test is a very big thing, because if you would look at it in the cleaning service, we would want someone that is very high in terms with the agreeableness, because they do interact, and as much as you want that everything would be perfect, there are instances that customers may be having conflict with our company or with the services. So we want also someone with good emotional intelligence in terms of dealing with conflicted situations or hard to deal with situations, because you may be operating on the back office and then something different happen in the on the ground. So we need to make sure that the employees are also well prepared or have at least the skills necessary to deal with those, because though we have customer support, or let's say back supports that also help the employees, let's say they're having a problem with a client, they are in contact with one of our representatives to help them deal with it. So it's like two person dealing with one customer. And also, of course, when we hire those representatives, we also check their emotional intelligence, that they're not just specifically following the scripts, but if let's say the situation is not on the script, so what do you do then, right? So you need to think fast and of course be critical, and at your best be still emotionally stable to deal with those. So yeah, though right now I would say I wasn't involved in how they choose or have chosen the psychological test, but that's the reason behind on what it really depends with the role. So for example, we don't conduct honesty tests with, let's say, the manager roles or those within the corporate, meaning internal within the team. We don't do that because they don't deal with the cash management, and also we do have separate assessment for them. And mostly, for example, with the leadership roles, we also hire like C-levels, because the company is expanding, we do hire a lot of directors, so we do a lot of leadership tests with them. So it really depends with the role that you're hiring, and then of course having a consultation with our on-call psychologist if which would be the most fit assessment tool to use for this position.
So next question would be, in terms of assessment, what ethical principles you believe you must observe and consider po?
Of course, every ethical principles must be observed, right? Like that's the rule of the thumb. But number one would be informed consent. Like, especially nowadays, like almost everything is digital. You could easily access or get information from someone, but there should be always informed consent. So, during our initial interviews with the applicants, we discuss to them the whole application process. So from the initial interview to the next interviewers to the assessments, and even the technical assessments. We also discuss to them that we'll be having this specific personality test. The only thing that we don't initially discuss is the honesty test. We would just discuss it few minutes before they take the exam, just so that there are instances that you cannot discuss it during the initial interview, because either they would think that, oh, you don't trust me, as early as this moment you don't trust me, and things like that. So you also want to build that comfortability with the person, and that they feel at ease during the whole application process, so that when you need to administer one of the, I would say, our most sensitive tests that we administer to them, they wouldn't feel it's as if that you are thinking that they are not honest, but you wanted them to feel that we think you're honest, we just need to put it in a paper. So that's the goal. So in that's why we need to establish during those prior the honesty test, we need to establish during the initial interviews, the other interviews, and the assessment that oh, this is how it feels to work with this company. I trust you, you trust me, I feel comfortable with you up until we get to that point, which is really a sensitive part of the application. And then of course confidentiality. There are instances that the data that the recruitment team work on are only for them. We do not have or I would say I almost have access to all, since I do help all the departments, but there are instances or data that are not being shown to all employees. And then of course there are also data that are supposed to be shown to all employees for transparency. So not exactly that you want to like make it a secret, but of course you want to protect the confidentiality of the data. And then of course fairness and non-discrimination. Number one thing that I think the recruitment team follows in terms with or one of the ethical principles they most follow. You wanted all the assessment to be as fair as you can. And of course, even the job performance, even let's say you are the supervisor of this employee and you are really close on even outside work. So you wanted to be objective as much as you can during the performance evaluation or when you're giving feedback. And then you also do not want to be like being unfair to those subordinates of you that doesn't sit well with you, because not everyone could be like, oh, okay, we're a perfect team. So we also try to make it, or try to let the managers or other employees doing the performance evaluation that at all times there should be fairness and non-discrimination. And then as someone that's doing or involved in terms with the assessment, of course, we also need to make sure the validity and reliability. That's why we do have an on-call psychologist to check that we are using the right tools at the right time, and it is also being implemented by the US psychometricians. How they implement it is really up to what is the procedure or standards being discussed with the manual of the test. And then though I mentioned this a while ago, but of course, transparency and feedback. Not in a way the transparency that you'll discuss everything, but at least you don't leave someone hanging, or you don't leave someone lacking knowledge that to the point that they cannot perform well because something's not transparent to them. Let's say this usually happens with our ground employees. Some ground employees are really performing well, and then we would like them to share that. Let's say, what is your technique in cleaning this specific type of situation? Some are, let's say, gatekeeping it, but we do understand, of course, that's their technique. But we also encourage them to share it. That's what, so that everyone would be performing well, and that when we do the assessment, everyone would be performing well, and we could give out the bonus with properly or with the right people. So yeah, that's it.
Last but not the least, we would like to know, what are the challenges and difficulties you often experience in assessment, and how do you handle it?
I would say number one would be language and the literacy level. So there are instances, for example, if you would look at people in Miami, some are mostly not coming from Mexico, but at least they have, let's say, Mexican blood, and then they have a different accent. So when these are registered psychometrician based in US does the administration of tests, sometimes there's problem with the intonation or the accent, that you need to repeat the instructions or the information that you're giving. There are also instances, let's say, immigrants that haven't yet, let's say, had English lessons. So sometimes we also have problems with them. Though, again, we do not discriminate. We welcome them in terms of applying, and we make sure that we do not reject them just because they weren't able to complete the assessment or such. But at some point, we also need to be hiring someone, as mentioned a while ago, with good intelligence level or even emotional intelligence, because you'll be dealing with a lot of people, and of course, communication is very important. Another challenge would be time constraints. So as mentioned a while ago, we do the 360-degree performance evaluation. So there are instances that one manager will not be submitting the performance evaluation at the right time, so you need to keep following up. Though we understand, because of course they need to do their job first before the job performance is one of their tasks as well, but I would say it's the least priority. So that's one. And then I would also say that when digging deeper with the qualitative answers of some of our appraisers, there's inconsistency. For example, last month he mentioned that this employee was like this, and then the next month it wouldn't be of the same performance. Though if you would look at the numbers of the employee, nothing changed. So there are instances that we need to make sure that, again, there's no bias, or at least there's no or the manager or the supervisor is not being unfair in terms of giving the qualitative feedback. And then, of course, resistance to assessment. As mentioned, there are instances that they would, some applicants wouldn't want to pursue with the application because of the honesty test. Or let's say they wouldn't give us accurate contact information of their previous employees. There are instances that they would be putting the phone numbers of their relatives, and then, would tell us, oh yeah, he worked with us and he was really well. Then after that, you'll be able to discover that, oh, it was one of his relatives. So things like that. Though, of course, reference check is part of our assessment. I would also say that there are instances that you would like to make the administration of tests very quick. So there are also, I would say that in terms of applying all the ethical standards, it's not that we are not following it, but there are instances that you might find a loophole that, oh, I could make it quicker. And all, since, again, time constraint is very much also a challenge for us. So I would say that, to be very much honest, there are instances that you cannot at 100% be at par with the legal standard. So let's say instead of being 100%, you might be able to follow it at 90%. So yeah, that's it.
On behalf of our group po, Ms. Sinon, we thank you po mainly from your knowledge and experience po in the HR setting, and for your time na din po. And for that, we will conclude it.
Thank you.